Welcome to A Rabbi and a Lawyer Walk Into a Bar, a podcast with relatively well-informed and irreverent musings on religion, news, and society. And now, for your hosts, Rabbi Asher Lopatin and John Geringer.
Hey, hi, John.
You make it sound like you just went to Cleveland.
Okay, yes, it's out.
I did not have on my bucket list that I would be reading the back page of the Wall Street Journal with a color picture of you holding a Torah in Damascus, having been escorted by HTS, Hayater al-Sham, the former Al-Qaeda branch of the group that basically just took over Syria. What the hell did I miss? And how the hell did Rachel let you go?
That's Rachel. She doesn't like me buying too many watches, but she lets me go to Syria. I have to. I didn't get my Tesla for my 60th birthday, but I did get to go to. All I got was this kosher meal going to Damascus. By the way, Qatar had. Anyway,
start from the beginning. We want to hear everything.
I'll tell you, really, I have a close relationship with a Muslim Syrian in Detroit, Dr. Yahya Basha. He owns a few MRI clinics and a wonderful man. He's the only one who courageously came out publicly against Hamas after October 7th, really in the area, only Muslim. And when the TS took over Syria, half his family had been killed over the years by Assad. He was overjoyed. Not only was he overjoyed, he felt that, as we know, the reason they were able to kick out Assad was because Israel had weakened Hezbollah significantly and Iran. He was so happy, and he's such a visionary because he feels that this government, one area is being tolerant of Christians and Muslims and Jews and women and all that. But the main thing is that they are focused on how do we rebuild Syria? How do we not drain a cup with Israel and Gaza and Palestinians and occupation, and which all the media is, and we know students are and all that. He really feels this is a government that might set the tone for the future of the Middle East. He was very excited about it, and he's involved in an organization called the Syrian Emergency Task Force that has been helping refugees over the years. That organization was able to get a letter from the government saying, we welcome the Jews to Syria, because actually the son of the chief rabbi who's in Israel wrote a letter saying, we love you, we love you, we love you, and we want to visit.
A letter to Abu Muhammad al-Jilani?
We call him Shara now.
Oh yeah, he's changed his name. He's now Ahmad al-Shara.
He has a tie, didn't shave the beard, but he has a tie. And
wait, did you meet him?
No, so they kept on we did meet some government officials, but they kept on saying, yeah, we're going to try to make a meeting with the president. No, we didn't meet the president. But we had some good meetings with some, like a deputy foreign minister. And I must say, so the scariest thing was I was worried we wouldn't get in with visas. And so we were even at JFK waiting for an hour. The woman at the ticket counter had to call Damascus and get approval. Once we got the boarding passes and it was just amazing. They treat us so well. It was really.
How did you fly?
Qatar, great airline and great kosher meals. Fantastic.
Then Qatar to Damascus?
Yeah, it's honestly, we didn't even see the inside of the airport because we were sitting in a VIP room. Everyone treated us so well. The guards you might have seen some of the pictures. The guards were like, we were able to kibitz with those HTS people. I have a picture of me holding their gun. They were just like a little embarrassing. I studied it for many years. My excuse is that I studied the classical Fusha, not the spoken Arabic. But the truth is, I was with another guy, a colleague from here, a young guy who had lived with Saudis, did Arabic undergraduate. He spoke Arabic. He was able to communicate pretty well. And these guards they were like, it's just different feeling in Syria. It's a feeling of joy, of rebirth. And a lot of the encounters were, yes, we wore hats most of the time. So they knew we were tourists.
I would imagine.
But,
Although
mostly,
the picture of you in the journal is you holding a Torah with a kippah on.
yeah, we went into the synagogue and really we went around that whole formerly Jewish area. We wore kippot in the hotel and we were in this restaurant where I could eat nothing, but beautiful, great restaurant. And we were dancing and there was this whole table of women with hijabs and stuff. That's why when you said it was like Cleveland, honestly, we felt more comfortable in downtown Damascus than downtown. Nothing bad about Cleveland, but so
This is a movie. Who's going to play you?
there's no drama. There's no drama. The organizer of this trip from the Syrian Emergency Task Force really a couple of things says, no, put your hat on, put your hat on. But people want to take pictures with me and with the kippah. And again, like all this, I realize maybe it's all bogus or something. It's like all a theory, let's say. It's all a theory.
Yeah.
My theory is that the reason they were so happy that Jews were returning, and by the way, I was just in a supportive role. I know I got my picture in the Wall Street Journal, but it was really Rabbi, the 78-year-old, who was the brother of the former chief rabbi, but he's a big rabbi in his own right. Rabbi Hamra and his son returning. And a lot of people in the street recognized him and they remembered when the Jews were there. I think part of the joy is they feel it's a new era for Syria and they express it through the joy of fond memories of Jews. Whereas remember in Poland, after the Holocaust and the Jews went back,
They were massacred again.
yeah. So it did not feel like that. The government has preserved the synagogues. They're falling apart, but they're there. There was a school where this Rabbi Yosef Hamra taught or was the principal, and it's in perfect shape. It's frozen in time from 1992.
I remember in '89, I was an intern for Senator Kennedy on his foreign policy staff, and I wrote a paper on Syrian Jews.
Wow. And yeah, and they were like a very illustrious, this was 89. So it was before there had been different exoduses, but before the big exodus in 92 to 94. So it was a big community. It's interesting to test it a little bit. There were these two guys, great guy, Joe and Albert, super cool guys. Like they were in Dubai and they were wary of coming to Syria, even though Joe had been to Syria several times under Assad, but they knew we were there. So they got on Air Dubai and flew to Beirut. And from Beirut, they took a car service or
Oh my
drive
God.
to Damascus. And we hung out with them a little bit and went to his former house where he used to live until he was 3, which is now a hotel. And then there's this super cool dude, like late 60s or something, who is one of the few Jews, one of the 7 Jews that remains. And he's super popular in the neighborhood. And the kids love him because he plays tennis and he gives them old tennis balls. And it was surreal. I'll just one more story is that
No, I want to hear all the stories.
no, it's like the Grand Canyon, and this is where but we were, my friend or colleague that I was with, Daniel, we walked around the hotel and walked outside, and there was this broken down Jeep that was like smashed and all that. And we said, hey, let's go inside and sit in it. And some of the workers who were around there, I don't know what they were doing, but they were around there, and they gestured to us what looked like, get away. And that's what I'm used to in Israel as a kid. You do things, get away, get away.
Yeah.
No, he said, no, take it. Take this broken,
Take my Jeep, please.
Right. People had a great sense of humor. I've been to other Arab countries and none were as friendly and the kids were so adorable. And look, the kids, they haven't seen a lot of tourists, so it's a novelty, but really responsive and also not sometimes people are so aggressive. They weren't like people running up to us for money, 1 or 2 times. And the kids, just really a modest, nice group. Look, Yardena Schwartz has this book about the 19 massacre, Ghosts of a Holy War. And In it, she says that the
The
Jews,
massacre in Hebron?
yeah, in 29, yeah. And she says the Jews of Hebron, they had such a great time with their Muslim Arab neighbors, and they couldn't imagine anything happening. And Nebuch, it
Well,
did.
same thing with the communities around Gaza. They were all,
Yeah, yeah,
friendly and happy until we know what happened.
yeah.
So is it a veneer? Is it them trying to spin their way back into the community of nations to get the sanctions lifted, to say we are different than Assad and we want to be part of the community of nations and all of that? Or what is it?
I think it wasn't just the government that talked about focusing on Syria and welcoming back the Jews. It was everybody. It's hard to imagine it's just a veneer. I think it could go in different directions. Also, people say that outside of Damascus, the HTS is not always so civil to everybody and
Well,
tolerant.
they were Al Qaeda. They were an Al Qaeda
Yeah,
branch, Al Nusra. So that's why it's so shocking that A, you felt safe enough to go.
right.
B, that I get it in these old neighborhoods when there was a Jew there, that's one thing, but to go to the Damascus airport and
Yeah,
wow.
look, I we felt that if this was not a time that they wanted to get us. They want sanctions removed, so it wouldn't serve their purpose to get the Jews. And Dr. Bosch, I really trust him that he's a wise man and has a good judgment. In the end, there was like a technical thing of stamping. We didn't have our passport stamped, but they got through everything. It was great. It was,
You're also the guy, don't forget, who brought Fatah to Anshe Shalom.
yes, great moments. Yeah, look, you got to push the envelope. You're right, but I will be.
And remind me and remind everybody who he was.
Yeah, so that was Arafat's group. There was a mixed, but it wasn't just Fatah. It was Likud and Fatah, Cherut and Fatah. It was a mixture. This is during really Camp David, the golden age of Camp David, the honeymoon. And this group, by the way, Linda Sager, who's still at Anshe Shalom, Linda and Paul,
Yeah.
she was with the JCRC or whatever in Chicago, and they brought in this group.
You brought him in, as I recall, a guy from Fatah to speak on Shabbat, as I
Yeah,
recall.
because we couldn't get the Likud people. We were like second class. We were stuck with the Fatah people, and they were very impressive. Now, it's interesting. Sometimes I wouldn't say we were duped by him, but it didn't work out, so to speak.
But
Um,
it's worth the try,
you
right? I
gotta
mean,
try. You
we've
gotta.
seen now Hamas is way outside the pale, can never come back, can never be rehabilitated. Every day brings a
Well,
new
and
sub basement of atrocities.
yeah, no, and all the crowds cheering them on. No, I would also say about sanctions is that lift the sanctions or get something, but if they go rogue, put them back on. What's the big deal?
There's talk, you and I were trading messages earlier, that there's some scuttle about the fact that the Abraham Accords may be widened to include Lebanon, Syria, to create more of a Sunni.
Yeah, I doubt that because Lebanon seems
It's
so
still Shiite.
yeah, a lot of Shia and Syria. I think he wouldn't want to risk recognizing Israel.
It's still Maronite Christian, right? To some extent, or that's gone.
In Lebanon, there are some, but where are they? Like they're so weakened. They were supposed to be the great allies of
And
Israel.
Syria was the Alawites.
Yeah, exactly. The Alawites, this government says we welcome everyone back. They when we were there, they had arrested three of the kind of the leaders of Assad people. But you couldn't use credit cards, no cash machines,
Right?
because there were sanctions. Sanctions were real. And what I the Osher Lopatin plan is one thing that I think the Syrians might be able to do is find the remains of Eli Cohen or some documentation about him and cooperate on that level. And that might show goodwill. It'll make Israel happier, and maybe then sanctions can be lifted.
And remind everyone, Eli Cohen was the famous spy to Israel that was embedded in Syrian high levels of their government and spied very successfully until, unfortunately, he was caught and killed. But until then, he was one of Israel's best spies overseas.
Yeah, there's a whole tour you can take of the Golan where, the different places where he was and when that was under Syrian control. The very complicated thing is Israel's possession of the Hermon. And now there are all these stories that the Druze
Right.
near there and in that area of Syria want to secede from Syria and
And
become,
maybe they're going to be buddy with the Kurds and create some
yeah,
sort of interesting ethno state.
for Shara, whatever, to resist the temptation of saying, we are going to take the Golan, we are going to kick out the infidel Jews and all that. He's resisted. That's a gibor. He's brave to do that. Our tradition says, who is a mighty person? Someone who can conquer their lusts or their desires. And for him to really not go after Israel, it's a brave thing. Again, it might be temporary, it might be strategic, but it's really pretty incredible. The other side is that if you want to get Syria to recognize Israel, they're going to have to work out something about the Golan and the Hermon and all that.
And Bibi's talking about having it be a DMZ from Damascus to the Israeli border.
Yeah, now I think maybe they could live with that, but that's hard. It's really challenging for this government to no comment. We have no comment. But so that was a story.
Did you make friends among the HTS
Yeah,
people?
you know what? It's not so much the foreign ministry people or the interior ministry people.
Can we get them on the podcast?
I know this one guy I met like a teenager, and somehow he got my WhatsApp. Maybe I gave him my card or something. I get this, it's Heda. Can tell Daniel to send me all the pictures. So who is this guy? I don't know. And then he said, oh, you must have forgotten. So I said, send me your picture. And then, he's that teenager that we saw for 5 minutes. So
Oh, wow.
did make some friends. And I made some Facebook friends, people who have seen it. But the funny thing is, rabbis, we need a little bit of kavod. We don't get enough respect. We get no respect.
Back page of the journal ain't bad.
I know, yeah, I will take it. I can retire now. But some of the bloggers or Facebook people or whoever they are, people on social media, they wrote, who is this Zionist Rabbi Lopatin? And one of them called me one of the godfathers of the Abraham Accords. Just
wow.
Telling our listeners.
Wow, you got your little footnote in history.
Exactly. I hope Wikipedia picks up on that. Yeah.
In a selfish way, all I care about is now the podcast can really take off.
Yeah, big time, big time. If it wasn't Representative Brad Schneider, it's going to be the Syrian government or something.
Yeah, wow. Oh my God. What an amazing. And you were there how long?
Just 4 days. We flew. It's a long flight to Qatar and from Qatar. It was a long flight. We were nervous getting back for Shabbos. Got back to Detroit with only a couple of hours. But thank God, everything was so smooth.
What did you eat?
Nothing. I brought tuna fish with me, and I brought a little can of nuts, of almonds. There was nothing. It's also, there aren't enough Jews that you don't even know what are the kind of things you could eat. There was bread, but I didn't know anything that was. And Rabbi Hamra and his son brought a lot of food with them. But Starkist, those packs of tuna are not so bad, not so bad. So
you are probably the only American Jew who's ever davened, who's ever prayed in Syria.
Yeah, a non-Syrian Jew. And people should go there. Damascus is a very charming city. It's it's like Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, like Agrippa near the Shuk.
Yeah. I'm getting this vibe, just like I did last episode on how Trump picks people based on who's on Fox News or who's in the media. I'm getting the sense that you're gunning to be ambassador to Damascus.
I have to ask Rachel, yes. But I just want to get invited to the Hanukkah party.
Now that you're famous.
Oh boy. Yes, yeah, no. So we'll see. I'm glad it was so well reported. There was so much excitement. There was the BBC and the New York Times. The New York Times, I don't think they've come out with anything yet. And the first people that reported on this, because John, I didn't even tell you. Did I tell you I was going to Syria? Did I?
No, you didn't.
I said a secret trip.
It was very good OPSEC, as they say, operational security.
But we were busted by Yeshiva News. They reported on the story the first.
They always get the scoops.
They do. They have their people everywhere.
And so the hotel was nice?
Yeah, it's the Sheraton. It's not the fanciest of there was not the Four Seasons, and it's not really a Sheraton, but I stole a lot of soaps that said Sheraton Damascus.
Oh, nice.
I didn't really, the folks gave them to me. I want to share just about Judah, who, while I was in Damascus, became an Israeli citizen.
Ah, Mazal Tov.
And thank you.
Wow.
And because he wants to go into the army, into Hesder, so he has to be an Israeli citizen. So I was very
He's
excited.
just finished he's finishing his second year at Yeshiva now?
He's in his third year. Yeah,
Third
finishing
year.
his third year. Yeah. Look, our kids, were so proud of them. That's something that I felt it was a really interesting combination of being in Damascus and the hotel had Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi was great. Qatar Airways, it's worth flying on them just for the Wi-Fi. It's like the best it's free. It's awesome. And
Did you get the Wilton foods to eat?
oh no, Hermolas from England. There, because these are all, I guess Syria is a French colony, but Qatar, I guess, was a British colony or something.
Yeah, I think that's right.
They get British meals. Unbelievable. Like I had a meal for a 3-hour flight from, of course, from Damascus to Qatar, had a kosher meal, and then 3 full kosher meals from Qatar to JFK. Look, Qatar, some people love them, some people hate them. Some of
I
the,
know where I stand.
what's that?
I know where I stand after the last couple of years.
Yeah, but they've got an excuse for everything. No, the Americans wanted us to do it. Netanyahu wanted us to do it. But they have a great airline, that I'll say. So it's one of those, I guess in some ways it's once in a lifetime because it started, but they want to do more trips. And they wanted to start off with this Rabbi Hamra, and the supportive crowd, me as a rabbi, they didn't want to choose like the head of the AJC or something like that. They wanted a very prestigious, but
A very prestigious rabbi.
they wanted a small rabbi from Detroit, but
They wanted to know what this lefty modern Orthodox stuff is all about.
exactly, exactly, yeah.
You know,
But
how they can embrace both religion and modernity.
yeah, you did see that in Syria. There were the very frum women covered up, but then there were a lot of modern women. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see where it goes. But I just didn't want to miss this opportunity of embracing them at this stage. The Our tradition says that God listened to Ishmael's prayers and crying, and it says the angel says when there wasn't any water for him and his mother, I hear this child Ba'asher Husham, the way he is now, or there now. And our rabbis say that the angel said, God, why are you helping him out? The Ishmaelites are not going to be so nice to the Jews in the future.
Right.
But God says, Basher Husham, right now, Ishmael is okay. So he's going to get water. So this
And
guy,
how interesting that we're talking about a group called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the Organization for the Liberation of the Levant. So we're back to Sham. Maybe there's some parallelism there.
Ishmael, yeah, a little playing with the words, but not too bad. But the next frontier is there's a group of Chaldeans going to Erbil. Now that's totally safe. That's Kurdistan. So we'll see what the next adventure is, really.
I remember I once had a book on the world's most dangerous places, and this guy would travel to them. I think you're going to do the
Oh,
from version of the world's most dangerous
oh
places,
my,
like where
no.
you try to find kosher food. You're going to go to Mogadishu next, and
Oh
then
my
you're going to
God.
go to, yeah, exactly.
Man. Yeah, no, but this really, there were guards there. We could go away. It wasn't like North Korea where they're with you the whole time. We could, for a lot of it, they weren't there, but for most of it, they
Were
and
you armored car like a Black Hawk
yeah,
Down?
bulletproof cars. We were in bulletproof cars, very exciting. But we didn't need it. The only thing you need it for, the traffic is crazy there. It's crowded,
Yeah.
no laws. There are almost no traffic lights. Traffic circles are crazy. It's like survival of the fittest. If you want to feel that Israel is nice and orderly, so go to Syria, go drive in Syria. So
Wow.
God willing, this will be maybe a step closer to peace in the Middle East. So do you have any thoughts of hope John?
Now I do. I didn't before, but now I do. I've been watching the news and watching what Hamas has been doing, and I've been watching other places where Islamists are decapitating Christians, and it's just everywhere I turn, it's bad news. And you, as always, bring on the good stuff.
This was good. This was exciting. And you see the Hamras coming back. By the way, we went to the synagogue, the French synagogue, where Henry Hamra, who's like in his 40s, was bar mitzvahed. The Torahs were there. He took out the Torah of his bar mitzvah. And I don't know if he really remembered it, but he did take out that Torah. I don't know if he remembered how to read it, but his father read from it. And that's pretty amazing. They can go, and they really, you could see in their face, they were really excited to come back to the old neighborhood.
Were you
And
so how many were you able to get a few people together in a minyan? Not quite a
so,
minyan?
as typical with Jews, there was some miscommunications. So there were these two guys whose mother was Jewish, father was a Muslim, and so of course, can we count them? We could halachically, certainly. They didn't really want to be counted. And then the these people didn't come, this one didn't come. We didn't get a minion, but we did daven. And we got some great pictures of davening. I had a lot of kavana, a lot of intention. Luckily, I wasn't like on my iPhone during davening or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
we don't want you too loud over there. Keep it inside.
no, it was fun. Really, we really everyone was just so gentle and kind, and it felt like an embrace. So it was very nice, which is so surprising. And again, okay, if it's a hatzaga, if it's just an act, they're putting on an amazing act. They're very well qualified.
Wow.
So that's Syria. Oh, then bonus,
But wait, there's more.
there's more. If you go through Qatar with Qatar Airways,
Yeah.
I spent a couple of hours in Doha, which is stunning. Oh my
That's
goodness.
what I hear.
Yeah. I've been to Dubai. I like Dubai. In Dubai, there are kosher restaurants and all that. And you can wear your kippah in Dubai. But Qatar, they want you to wear a hat. But it's on like on a bay. It's a beautiful, you have the skyscrapers behind you lit up and you walk, and then there's
Were you able
fireworks.
to explore a little bit?
Just a 3 hour walk. I wouldn't really say, but walking along the bay, it's just gorgeous. That's and is it
Your
you have to,
passport must look crazy.
actually I haven't looked at they didn't I did get a visa. So there's some stickers in it from Qatar. Oh, that's going to be a big headache for Israel, but okay, we'll see what happens. But
Can you imagine the next time you go to Israel, you've been where? With
no, but they
whom?
didn't stamp. They didn't stamp the passport.
Ah,
They're very considerate. Like Israel doesn't stamp the passport. So
yeah, but Mossad listens to this podcast.
that, yes, I worry about that a little bit. But when people got back to JFK, I have global entry.
Ah,
A
Mazel tov.
computer looks at your face and says, "Get out of here, go,
Yep.
go." They got stopped and they said, "Where were you?" And they said, "Syria." And they went into the little room there.
Little special treatment for you over here.
Yeah, they took their phone. They went through their phone. Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Wow.
But it was just added a half. That was in JFK, really. Oh my goodness. But yeah, we'll see what Israel does. We'll see. I have to relook at my passport because you got to get a visa in Doha to go out.
Right.
$20. Things are cheap. $20. Taxi rides to the downtown is like $15. Really not bad. So that was a little bonus. That was a fun bonus.
Wow. You win. In
How was
terms
your
of,
week, John? How was your
I
week?
got nothing. I had
Oh,
nothing.
come
I was appointed to this Holocaust commission
Oh,
and all this
but
stuff, but
explain. Let's unpack. Congratulations. Unpack that. What's that?
it's nothing compared to what you did. But I was appointed, there's an Illinois Holocaust and Genocide Commission that I was appointed to. And the purpose
Wow.
of it is to provide education and to commemorate both the Holocaust and the various genocides. And then I also started working on a sort of a national movement that is going to develop a Holocaust legal curriculum. And so working with a bunch of other law professors who teach this stuff and try to promote the teaching of Holocaust and the law. There have been some initiatives through the American Bar Association to teach things surrounding anti-Semitism and the like, and this can be folded into that. So it'll be a good way to prompt this kind of education in law schools, which is very much needed.
So in Holocaust and the law, what do you mean exactly by that?
Yeah, so I teach this class in the summer. Michael Basler is really the Gadol Hador. He's like the Yoda of Holocaust legal issues,
Uh,
and he wrote a book called Holocaust Genocide and the Law, and he's been doing this for decades. And really, the goal is not really to teach the history. You use history as a way to get to lessons for today. How
uh-huh.
society can crumble, how we talked about this before. Weimar Germany was even more liberal than we were in the United States. They let women vote a year before the US could, and how they
Wow.
went from that to Nazi. And so a lot of it is about teaching through the war crimes courts, the restitution efforts, the walking through the court systems in Weimar Germany and Nazi Germany, and reparations and other issues surrounding, like I said, lessons for today. In the very last class, I mentioned this before, I think, where we have the students adopt a Nazi, and you pick a Nazi official, no matter, doesn't have to. The only one
Uh-huh.
I don't want him to do is Hitler. That's way too easy.
Right.
But pick a Nazi official from one of the trials or one of the
Uh-huh.
other leadership positions and show that how they went from normal to Nazi. And the goal is to show it's a thin line between those people who started off normal. They were doctors and lawyers and judges and cops and all that, and how they were able to be convinced by society to do what they ultimately did.
And do you think it's because they violated the rule of law? Like, had Nazi Germany followed the laws on the books?
It's
That could
interesting. In some places they did, and in some places it was lawless. Michael Baser takes the position that even in the concentration camps, there was a system of laws. Others have said, like Tim Snyder, that these areas were lawless, that in effect, when the SS came in as nation destroyers,
right.
they created these lawless zones. But in Germany,
Right.
for example, everything was based on law, the Nuremberg laws. And we walked through a whole series of other lesser known laws where Jews were slowly deprived of things that people don't even think about, like Jews couldn't become auctioneers, and Jews couldn't do this, and Jews couldn't do that. And even the Nuremberg laws at the time was thought by the Jews in Germany at the time
Right.
to not be as bad as we think of them today. Why? In effect, they cabined the violence that had been occurring the previous years and created a legal structure by which, yes, Jews were oppressed, but they weren't violently oppressed.
So is the
That
argument,
obviously changed at Kristallnacht, but before that, there was this era where they felt as if, at least if the discrimination is through the law, it's done in a more systematic way that isn't the outbursts of violence that they saw in the years leading up to when the
hmm.
Nuremberg laws were adopted?
So is the argument that if you have rule of law, you're safer?
It's a good question, because you could have some areas where laws could create the very things that we talked about. Like I said, even the concentration camps had a
Right.
series of laws. I think it cuts both ways.
Yeah.
That you could have a series of laws that could deprive people of life, liberty, and the pursuit of
Right.
happiness, and
Right.
you could also have areas where the legal system was created in a way that ultimately led to the camps. And
Wow.
very complex, complicated issue, which makes it so much fun to teach and study and learn about. And I think it really opens up the students' eyes,
Wow.
and that's why I really think it's so important to teach it in law schools and even downstream to colleges and high schools. And I'm working with an organization called Courtroom 600 that we should get them on the podcast one of these days. And what they basically do is,
Wow.
through podcasts and other ways, teach tolerance and teach some of these lessons using the Nuremberg trials as a
Wow.
way to really get people to drop their guard. It's really hard for people to defend Nazis, although these days it's a little more common than it used to be. But if
Right.
you talk about the history, sometimes it's a way to diffuse some of the heat surrounding these issues than if you talk about more current events.
In speaking of current events and Nazis, are you scared about that the AFP, this right wing, this fascist, I don't know, right wing party in Germany got 20%, or do you think it's just they don't like immigrants?
Yeah, I think more the latter. I think it's an inevitable backlash, and it's funny when you see the results. A lot more of it is in the East, the old East Germany,
Oh gosh.
which in many ways, and I've been there 10, 15 times. In many ways, the East has always been more frozen in time and more conservative and less wanting to change. But it, even when we were going back in the early 80s in Germany, I remember there was a backlash because they let in, at least the perception was at the time, the Turks. A lot of
Oh
Turks
yeah.
came into
Turkish
to
slave
Germany.
guest workers. Yeah.
That's right. So there's always been some degree of backlash, but then when Merkel let in so many, and we see this throughout Europe, and then it creates this sort of reciprocal radicalism, right? Especially when it's one thing to have a lot of immigrants, which is great, but it's another thing when they don't assimilate and when they create
Yeah.
violence. We used to talk about that only in France, right? The banlieues,
Right.
the suburbs where a lot of these immigrants didn't assimilate, and now it seems to be the case throughout Europe, and it's creating this right wing backlash. And before the AFP, there was a firewall between them and the rest of the politics in Germany, and that seems to be breaking down slowly. I think it's because the backlash to opening the doors too much to immigrants, and then those immigrants not assimilating, not adopting German culture, and Dafka, and even saying things like, we want to turn Europe Islamic. And obviously, when they try to stop people from walking down the streets and try to impose their ways on European culture, I think that's when you see the backlash that we're seeing today.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Look, so the world, it's topsy-turvy, really topsy-turvy.
It is, but yet you brought such a great ray of hope and optimism, like you always do, and just in time for Adar, right? Adar is the
Yes.
month that is coming up. Purim is in that month, and when Adar comes, we're supposed to bring in joy.
Yes. And one of the themes of the holiday of Purim is V'nahafochu, things becoming the opposite of what we thought. I do think Syria was always the scariest country against Israel. I remember
Yeah.
the torture and Assad and everything. And now maybe it's V'nahafochu. Maybe things have flipped around and there are other scary countries, but maybe not Syria.
Yeah, I mean, they took out a nuke plant in Syria, uh,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, 20 years ago now.
Yeah, this Saturday is Shkalim. We begin to talk about donating money when they used to donate the money to the temple, and it gets us in the mood for Purim. Really, a little bit more than 2 weeks away.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, on the other end, this month of Adar, a lot of times the worst things happen in Adar. So I don't want to jinx it, but
And look, we've had so much tragedy and so much
uh,
seeing the hostages released and all the horrible pain that we saw Hamas inflicting on both the hostages that they released and the hostages' families, and some who they pretended to release and kept them in the van. Just
oh my
it's
God.
it's so hard to feel optimism. So that's why maybe I'm just grasping every chance I
Oh
get.
yeah, no, this is good, and we'll follow it, and hopefully things will move in the right direction. I'm meeting with someone from the Israeli Foreign Ministry, God willing, on Sunday to discuss my findings and to discuss my crackpot theories also. So I'm very excited about that.
Hopefully, they don't have to waterboard you to get information out of Syria.
I know. Oh my goodness. So John, I think my tiredness is kicking in from the long flights and the staying awake. And though I did sleep okay, the hotel, Sheraton, no complaints, no complaints. But looking forward to celebrating Purim and good things, and honestly, a world where the unexpected can happen in a positive way. That's what I would say.
I love it. Welcome back. Glad you're here in one piece.
Thanks. And
And we pray for peace.
we do. We are into peace. And like Donald Trump is into peace. We're all on the same page.
Thank you, Ambassador Rabbi Lopatin.
Hanukkah party. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, take it easy.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Rabbi and a Lawyer Walk Into a Bar. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to get our next episode delivered right to you. If you really like us, please consider leaving a review and sharing this with a friend. That would really help our efforts. And finally, to contact us and for more show-related information, please visit our website, rabbilawyerbar.com. Special thanks to our production team, David Stone for the introduction music, Andrew Bauman for the artwork, and I'm Nicholas Tantillo. This podcast is co-produced with Front and Social Studios in Chicago. Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. Copyrighted material, all rights reserved.